Hello there, everybody. Welcome to this episode of A Thing. My name's Chris, and I'm so happy to have you here. And I'm also with Jim McCormick, who I will introduce in just a moment, and also our celebrity producer, Dave Pyper. I want to thank DraftKings for continuing to sponsor this show. We love DraftKings. I'll talk about them a little bit more in a bit. Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm good. 1-1 versus 0-4 was nice from last week. Wasn't exactly a great divisional weekend, but it was a fun. I wouldn't say fun because I wanted other things to happen. I wanted the roar to be restored, as the kids would say. I was a Lions fan. But I had a good story real quick. I had a friend watching the game with, and he watched the first half and then fell asleep. And then of the NFC game, and then he woke up and was like, "What?" It was like he woke up in a fire. He was like, "What happened?" So that was cool. Yeah. That was nice. He just couldn't believe it.
We're going to talk about that fire. We're going to,
yeah.
So this is our show in between the shows. This is the show. This is not really a Super Bowl preview show yet. Although I'll ask Jim a little bit about the Super Bowl, but that's more for next week when we'll talk about how we think the game might go in depth and talk about props and all that stuff. That's for next weekend. We're going to do some looking back, Jim. I'm not sure if you listened to the flagship podcast, to the main one, but like I kind of promised that we would talk about the AFC and NFC championship games, respectively, because I didn't really do it on the main show. So people listening in the podcast feed and not watching on YouTube, first of all, don't I sound more handsome than I am? Also, wouldn't you imagine you're going to get a little talk here about how two teams went into the game with clean pants and emerged not so much with the clean pants. But we will say, first of all, let's congratulate Aaron Flynn, a YouTube viewer, who predicted both of the point spreads correctly last week. That would be having the Chiefs and then having the Lions. So way to go, Aaron. And you and I, Jim, we kind of we flipped. You got the first one right. I got the second one right. My best bet of the week, though, was the over in the second game. That was easy. That was like almost by halftime. And your best bet, I think, was the over in the other one. How'd that one go?
It went like the Ravens' game plan. It was good.
Yeah, it didn't go. And then props, I think we were a little mixed, but overall fun weekend for sure. Like lots and lots to talk about. I'm going to get the initial Super Bowl questioning of you out of the way up front. I just want sort of first blush thoughts of 4 years ago. We were all so innocent.
Yes.
I mean, that's going to be a storyline, right? It's right before COVID. I remember where I was for the first Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl, and I remember letting people breathe on me and not being worried about it. Here we are 4 years later. It's the same two teams. A little fatigue for you just thinking about these two teams playing a big game?
Yes. It's so interesting because Philadelphia somehow was rooting for Andy Reid in a weird because we had Philadelphia had just won. I keep saying we, which is just a disease. As if I don't play for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not a stakeholder. Jeffrey Lurie does not respond to my texts. It just goes I'm not sure it's Jeffrey Lurie, actually. I think it's the wrong number. The point being, it was an innocent time. Meaning it was like Jimmy Garoppolo, he's harmless. Pat hadn't won yet, and then they did, and now I'm done with them. I don't want to do it anymore. Stop it. It's like Mission Impossible 5. I don't want to watch that. I'm sorry. But then again, 7 was
but also,
good, so.
Are the Niners cuddly as an alternative? They're they're favored.
No.
And they're really good, and they feel like they've fallen a little on hard times. It's funny. So I'm going to have Matt Landis from Props and Hops on the main podcast next week to do more Super Bowl talk. Jim, you and I are going to do the one where we make picks and don't know what the hell we're talking about. Then I'll talk to Matt, and Matt will actually give us a real perspective on how people are handicapped. So I watched the championship games with Matt and his wife Allison, and they ended, and I said, "Well, Chiefs are probably favored here, right? Just based on how they've played lately and what the Chiefs just did in winning these two road games and what the Niners defense has looked like and how the Niners probably really shouldn't have won either playoff game. Probably the Chiefs, right?" And he goes, "You're wrong. You're bad at this." and he said, "I guarantee you it's a field goal or just under." And sure enough, Matt looks at an offshore book who get the lines first. It was 2.5. Within 30 seconds, he goes, "Oh, no, it's 2 now." Mm-hmm. and it stayed so far since we're recording this on Friday, like whatever 9 days before the Super Bowl. It's still 2, and it's not the Chiefs. I was wrong. It's the Niners. I have to say I'm surprised.
I am too. It's almost like the regular season is heavily baked into that, I suppose, like the win differential and everything. But yeah, I just straight up, like, I'm not just going to say the quarterback career. I'm just going to say the last 2 weeks of quarterback play. Mahomes has been peerless, and Brock Purdy is kind of like I don't know, like a country music Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I don't know, like J.C. Penney Jimmy. I don't know. Like,
I think that's a little unfair. I think they're very different styles.
No, I know. Yeah, they are.
Level of quarterback maybe similar from Garoppolo's peak, but they're pretty different styles. All right,
Yeah.
so whatever. We're going to talk more about the San Francisco-Kansas City game. There's so much more time to talk about it. And, Jim, I've never been happier not to be going to Radio Row. I don't like I've been to Radio Row a couple times and didn't like it. And this year, with these two teams, boy, am I, the dumb level of discourse of dumb topics that people are going to latch onto. I'm just very happy not to be partaking in that. So instead, let's cast our lonely eyes back at, let's face it, we're mostly going to talk Ravens and Lions here, but it's worth talking about. And so we'll do them in chronological order. We'll do the AFC game first, even though I'm kind of more interested in the NFC conversation because we get to talk about analytics. Nobody scores in that second half, right? I guess the Ravens scored at the very end. But it's 17-7 half. It's 17-7 for most of the... Mahomes was excellent, and I think you can easily make the argument that they probably could have put up a bigger number if they had to. Like, they were looking for the clock to... But not so... I mean, I think the Ravens just played better in the second half on defense, and they decided, okay, maybe this Travis Kelce guy shouldn't kill us, and then he kind of didn't. The story and the coaching problems come on the Ravens offense, and also that thing that winning organizations have, that the Chiefs have, that it was very clear when they got pressured the Ravens did not have, which is, hey man, maybe don't commit 700 penalties. Hey man, like maybe don't be so jacked that you have to taunt someone, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. You can take it from wherever you want, but I just say John Harbaugh did not have a good day.
He did not. Because going into the game, I was looking to him as I wanted to aspire to have John Harbaugh because that's Nick Sirianni's very like bootleg role, which is now like game manager because he's just Harbaugh's specialty is I suppose defense, but it's really special teams. My point is I wanted to make myself feel better for my own team. It didn't work out. The whole idea of use the front of house manager. But yeah, they didn't seem. It was strange. They did not play like favorites or home favorites. I don't know, and I still do wonder. I guess it was Spags just had this great game plan and it was executed so well. But I understand it's people tend to want to get away from the run. But in this case, it's part of the identity, and they just didn't run even when the game was close. I thought that was strange. And then it's they read the halftime tweets and came out running in the second half when it wasn't really appropriate in terms of game flow. It was just interesting. If you told me one of the teams was going to run it 32 times and regardless of efficiency, continue to commit to own the game and keep the one player off the field, I would have bet it was the team in purple. But it was Pacheco who was just running into a wall over and over. It wasn't the Gus Edwards bus crashing into walls. It was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, 8 running back carries or something, not enough. But I don't know. I mean, I've gone back and watched it again,
right.
And to some degree, I understand because the Chiefs. I mean, the Spags showed his hand.
Right.
They ran blitzed. They brought pressure constantly. They had guys in the lane. The Ravens came out trying to run on the first drive. The Chiefs go down, score. Then the Ravens go down, score also, and on that drive they ran great, right? Gus Edwards had a huge chunk run up the middle on that drive, but then every time Justice Hill carried it, he just got met by a safety. And honestly, it's where the problem isn't so much the scheme. The problem there, I think, is just Justice Hill stinks at football, and isn't going to make the safety miss. You need at some point it just becomes about not scheme. Hey, that guy's trying to tackle you. Could you please not allow him to do that? And that was Justice Hill couldn't do it, and they did get away from it. But I think it was alignment, and they realized that the few times that you look at yards per carry, obviously a terrible stat. It was 7 1-yard runs and then a 23-yard run, right? And I'm not even mad at them, I guess, not for calling running back runs Why didn't Lamar run more?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, there wasn't any zone reads. There wasn't any design. I do get what you're saying. Justin Reed was like a linebacker. He was like a dime linebacker the whole time, just crashing.
Right.
Spags, I would say, like Spags just had a brilliant game. They had, and I suppose it speaks to like the defense that the Chiefs have. Like the whole idea was this is the best defense the Chiefs have faced. It was also the best defense the Ravens have faced. You'd suppose, like in terms of well, maybe it was the best scheme, regardless of talent. Like they schemed them so well. It was strange. Like Lamar, there's these regression talks, or can he play from the pocket? Like. They just had an incredible recipe for him. Also, at the same time, this is a different conversation without that fumble, like right. So it's interesting. Just this game came down to those things. Obviously, I mean that was just such a huge play. Right. Like that was the biggest win percentage switch of the week, maybe of the season in terms of its consequence, right? So who knows what happens then? But I also agree with you that there probably would have. Maybe I can't predict this, but the Chiefs did like. Kind of accept
pull the ripcord.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. No, I think they did. I mean, you got Zay Flowers getting a personal foul, lording over somebody after a catch in the first half. You get Zay Flowers fumbling at the goal line because people are still not coaching people to not extend the ball when it's going to be first down from the 1 yard line.
With Lamar Jackson.
Isn't that a coaching point? Like, isn't that like that your players have to know that you can't do that?
No, you can't.
And not be a hero.
Yeah.
It's like we're far enough along now, and the frickin' Chiefs just suffered it against the Bills. Mecole Hardman doing it and fumbling into the end zone. That's the problem. If you fumble in the end zone, it goes out the back of the end zone, you don't have the ball anymore. And then just you said it so well, and they didn't play like a favorite. Mm. They played like they needed to be the stereotypical bully who's really insecure underneath it all, like that's like, you're not going to come into our house. Like we're going to put our kicking net in your way, or, we're just like a whole bunch, like we're going to, I don't know, man. Like that team didn't seem, they have to stop the Chiefs, right? They kick a field goal. They're down 7. They kick off. The Chiefs first play, the Ravens have 12 men on the field. Well, way to go. And then now they know it's 1st and 5, so they are going to take an intentional offsides to make it 1st and 10 again, which is completely free to them. And who was it? Was it what's his name from who was on the Bears? The linebacker. I just name flew out of my head.
Oh, Roquan Smith.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Roquan goes offside intentionally, but does it so hard that he knocks over the guard and gets a personal foul. That's bad coaching.
Yeah, they lost it. They did. I would say that they lost it, but they came in the game that way, kind of like in terms of, like you said, just trying to set some tone that wasn't. It was. They were like the Fresh Prince. They were like the opposing team that was like feisty and mean. They're like Teen Wolf. They're the guy Teen Wolf. So that's what it is. Yeah.
Those are very contemporary references. Well done.
I only work within 1986 to 1994. So
okay. So I mean, this is not to. The whole point of my saying this is the Chiefs are not the team you're going to do this to. Mm-hmm. The Chiefs are not going to be like, oh my God, they're crazy. I'm so scared now. Like this is like playing late career Brady. This is like playing. They're the button down organization. They're the ones, Mecole Hardman last weekend notwithstanding, who don't do this stuff to themselves, right? I mean, they did it back in the day when Dee Ford was offsides against Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game, but it's been a long time since then, and like we're not going to intimidate the Chiefs. Like they're buttoned down in the way that the supposed best team in football was supposed to be buttoned down. This is really, honestly, coming full circle, meant to be a big compliment to the Chiefs, because talent-wise, I don't think their roster's as good as Baltimore, and I proved it last week by being wrong on picking this game. But they've got it together in ways that I grant you that it's hard to do, but they have figured out the right guys and the right coaches and the right everything, and in ways the Ravens clearly were not, even though we thought they were, and the ways the Bills definitely are not, and the ways the Bengals were a couple years ago, and Burrow gets hurt, but like the Chargers have all this talent. They're the opposite of button down. Like this is why the Chiefs are probably going to win the Super Bowl, frankly, is because they just get it.
Yeah, there's a composure gap, I guess, whatever you would call it. It was just straight up composure gap, and then it helped that the Ravens lost like 4 of their 5 best coaches, and then their front office got raided. So that's always fun. I mean, at least the Orioles made a trade. I don't even know what that means, but go for it.
We'll see. Future Ravens. I mean, and like, let's not let Lamar off the hook because,
Right.
sure, Zay Flowers' fumbling's terrible, but that pass on a first down with a chance still to be down 3 points where, all it takes is Isaiah Likely throwing up his hand, and you're just like, I trust him. And he's triple covered. Like, okay, man, I'm pretty sure Mark Andrews is back. Maybe we could do that. That was horrible. It was a terrible throw.
Yeah, no, I was surprised in general, like how often he didn't like take time either. There was a couple plays where I thought he could create. I'm still baffled by the lack of scrambling or broken play magic that like in
Absolutely.
regards to like, especially when things weren't working. It was kind of like, hey buddy, remember that thing you can do? It was like, it's just like it's like he showed up at a birthday party and just disappointed all the kids. He just wasn't a good magician. So.
And let's be clear, like that doesn't mean Lamar Jackson sucks.
No.
And it doesn't mean he's not one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but it does mean that he's not ready and maybe never will be. Like there's a little extra step there, especially on a team like the Ravens where there's not a lot else. This is not a dominant running game, at least not as currently constituted as it was constituted in that game. And like he needed to be Lamar. And if he couldn't be, they weren't going to win. And we all thought he would because he's the MVP. And it's a step back. Of course, it's a reassessment. He's still good. If you're a Raven fan, you're still happy he's your quarterback. He's still relatively young. You hope that there's better times ahead. But like, you have to say it's not. It was awful. It was awful. It was a really bad performance in the second half, especially.
Wasn't great.
All right, let's get to the main event. Because we get to talk about analytics, because of course that's my favorite thing. I mean, here's the thing, Jim. This game clearly turns on the actual Lions players evacuating their bowels in the third quarter.
Absolutely.
Right? This is not about, in the end, it's not about the coaches, and it's not about a coach's decision. This is the players. And the Lions players played unbelievably well in the first half on both sides of the ball and then lost their freaking minds in the third quarter. We have plenty of other things to talk about, and we're going to spend more time talking about those other things. But we should just kind of acknowledge that the most important thing was that the Lions weren't good enough.
Yeah, and again, composure gap, at least in the second half, between like Gardner Johnson like headhunting when you're up big makes no sense. He was waving to the crowd. That's always smart. But more importantly, I in a sense I feel bad for him because of the human side of Josh Reynolds. But like, talk about like win percentage. If you want to talk about EPA stuff like that dude left it all on the floor. And the other thing too is I think it's hysterical that like a 12-year blocking tight end is the face of analytics now. Like like who eats like winter skull dip during the game, and like this is the god of analytics.
He doesn't spit it. He eats it.
He eats it. Yeah, like he just like chews Lenny Dykstra baseball cards. Like this guy's an animal, and it's just incredible that he's now the face of EPA and of fourth down. But look, it's like his aggressiveness helped get them there, and they had a high and the plays were open. They were there. I don't know what to say. It was like he ran junk.
We'll
plays.
get to it.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll get to it. Because I know that's what we want to talk about. I know that's what we want to talk about. But like, let's add in Jahmyr Gibbs fumbling one play. Let's add the defensive back with the ball bouncing off his face for Brandon Ayuk to catch. Like, there's so many mistakes. And I mean, the first pass to Josh Reynolds probably should have caught it, thrown behind him, wide open, thrown behind him. Second one was thrown
right to him.
Fine. But he's Josh Reynolds, and maybe you don't throw to Josh Reynolds. So we're about to get into exactly what you were veering into there. But I just want to once again reemphasize, I'm not calling the Niners bad. I'm not saying they aren't worthy of being the NFC champion. They are. They're the worthy NFC champs. They are. But I mean, they are because of contrast. Because by comparison, the Lions weren't ready and had never been there before and like crap themselves. All right. Here's the way I want to frame analytics. You started talking about win shares and expected points added and stuff like that. And I get pushback every time I say it's made up. Because it's not like entirely made up, obviously, expected points added. I want to liken it to IQ tests. See if you can go with me here. This occurred to me this week. Like, what is an IQ test? Well, a bunch of people got together to create a rubric where, okay, if we ask this many questions of this type with this number of answers, we start to be scientific about intelligence. We start to be able to pigeonhole and figure out who's smart in what ways and who's not and all that. And like by and large, an IQ test is going to give you a vague neighborhood, maybe even not that vague, of somebody's intelligence, in the way that expected points, by looking back at all the myriad data that is out there about down, distance, situation, all that stuff, also puts you in the neighborhood, maybe even closer than the neighborhood. The problem I have with quote-unquote analytics and the way it's discussed is I literally read stuff on Monday that said it was the right move and it's not open to debate because math is math. And buddy, that's wrong. That's not true. And like, if that honestly gives the coach a way out. Hey man, what do you want me to do? The math said I was supposed to do it. Would Bill Belichick have called a timeout in the Seattle Super Bowl if he had a computer there and it said, hey man, you need the ball back, like you better call timeout here? And instead he looked over at the Seahawks crapping their pants, not knowing what to do, and was, I think I'll just let them run a play. Right? There's so many examples that we think of great coaches as having a feel. Bill Parcells it's a feel. It's not so. It's like I'm looking these people in the eye and I'm seeing something good or bad, and I'm not telling. And I know analytics people. I'm an analytics person. It's all good, but like the people at the farthest end of the spectrum. I'm gonna let you talk in a second. The other end of the spectrum, people who are like, there's you have to go for it. This is not open for debate. Their whole thing is, I want to get the whole momentum and looking a guy in the eye and feel for the guy. I want that out. That's not quantifiable, so I don't want that in the mix. And I think that's stupid, and I think that's why the Lions didn't win. So you can take that any way you want. But like, do you like my metaphor, my analogy between the IQ test and the EPA?
I do, yeah. I mean, I basically just took a couple like state teacher exams, and they have like baselines they set, and they're not always the great. They get you in the neighborhood, right? It's not telling you you're a great teacher. It's just you pass this baseline, and it's not always. It doesn't account for the social emotional stuff. That's not in the test, right? It doesn't talk about classroom management. That's not in the test. My point being, it's not be able to adapt the full scope of what your job is. Just like there's feel for sure. If I was running the team, I would have kicked a field goal. Right. I would have kicked a field goal at the second, fourth down, just because I was like, "Hey, buddy, let's just let's stop this bleeding,
slow it down,
stop this bleeding, and put them in a different position and how they had to react, and then change their." It's also like we talk about styles make fights. I'm a big boxing fan. It's like you have to adapt. You can't just be like, "Let's keep jabbing" when the guy's like feigning the jab. It's like it's not going to work. Like you have to change your game plan adaptively. I've seen it with the Eagles in a way, like every week. You said this. Nick Sirianni comes out. It's like, we're going to get together. We're going to change things. The next week it was like, we did it, but now we're just wearing Kelly green. It's like it doesn't work that way. So no,
and the point. Yeah. The point is about like the expected points added to like this gives you a 29.2% chance of winning, and this gives you a 30.1% chance of winning, and that's supposed to convince me that it's never okay not to do the 30.1. I don't think that's true. I don't like. We're gonna talk here like the first field goal that they could have taken in the third quarter after the Niners had taken the kickoff and they'd gone down and they'd kicked a field goal. There's a lot of people out there saying, you need to make it a 3-score game the way it was at halftime. You need to kick the field goal there. Period. End of story. I don't know. I think I'm okay with the idea that you went. Like, okay, you're still way up and you're going for the death blow. I'm like, there are people mad that they didn't that they didn't go for it at the end of the first half to put the death blow there.
Right.
Okay, but still, I'm okay kicking the field goal because you have less yardage to use because you're right on the goal line, and so the odds are it's the last play, and the odds are like. And you said it on the second one, on the second fourth down, you said you think you would have kicked the field goal just because they had made so many mistakes and they were dying and they were only down 3. They could have tied it and at least sort of righted the ship. I'm even amenable to the idea. I just don't want to be told that there's not a decision to be made.
Right, yeah, that's true. And it's also, I suppose it's also like the context of the game had changed by that point. The first time, they hadn't been shown yet that the Niners could play defense. That's such a good point. So the tone changed. I mean, like they came down, they started like they basically just were like, Amon-Ra St. Brown's not going to beat us. They just like completely dedicated themselves to that, and it tended to work. So yeah, they showed up. Like they did the same thing in a way against the Packers, although that was even more of a composure gap, in my opinion. In terms of just they fell apart in terms of reeling. But either way, it was upsetting for a real hater here. It was upsetting. I'm a hater.
All right, so I'll ask you more about it. I want to thank DraftKings for sponsoring. If you're looking for a way to play the Super Bowl, DraftKings is a fantastic way to do it, and we would love for you to download the app. If you do, you use the code HarrisTube, all one word, and you make one $5 bet. Jim, they give you $200 in bonus bets. So all those prop bets, all those teasers, all those totals, everything related to the Super Bowl, and of course, all the other sports you might want to potentially place a small wager on, you can use with your bonus bets when you make one $5 bet. Thank you very much to DraftKings for continuing to sponsor the show and indulging us, allowing us to have these flights of fancy intellectual conversations about a very dumb thing. But DraftKings, again, great. Dave uses, Jim uses, I do not use. I'm in California, but I would. Otherwise, again, use that code HarrisTube, all one word. You make one $5 bet, you get $200 in bonus bets right away, so you could do it right now, right as you're hearing me, right as you're seeing us, and then you'll have that money to play with for the Super Bowl. Thank you again to DraftKings very much. Okay, so we've talked about the losers. we talked about the losers. I kind of wanted to continue on with the NFC Championship game, though, and ask you about the 49er defense. You're a connoisseur of defense. One of your jobs is to pay pretty close attention to the defensive players. I said this to Pat Doherty on the main podcast. Can anyone name the last good game the San Francisco defense played? Because I'm pretty sure it was before Christmas.
Probably against the Eagles, to be honest. When they destroyed the Eagles, they only allowed one really good drive. It's been a while, especially a full game where it was like the first three games they had Chase Young, and then Chase Young obviously had that terrible start to the game. I don't know if you saw, he completely quit on the one Montgomery touchdown. But their defensive line did show up at the end there. They were starting to penetrate. Kinlaw is just a large man, and he was getting penetration. And then Nick Bosa, he's healthy Bosa. Healthy Bosa. He was relentless. I hate to say it because he was good. Not a big fan of his, he was he really was moving things around, and I think that did affect. And Goff doesn't move so well, so that was great.
He did in the first half.
He did, yes. No, you're right. He was sidestepping, really was stepping up really well. And then the thing is that, Fred Warner is kind of a freak show, and he was taking care of Laporta, which is obviously another huge valve. You didn't hear him in the second half, so. I don't like it. I don't like that they're playing well, but they do have this tale of two halves. They're a tale of two halves team. It's just they whatever they're saying at halftime is like the opposite of what John Harbaugh says or something like that. So,
I'll grant you Bosa. I thought he played a really good game, start to finish. I didn't see anybody else until the very, very end when it's desperation mode, and I didn't see anybody else in the defensive line. So I've heard again, just like a couple weeks ago, I was saying. I can't remember which game that was. Houston on Baltimore, maybe. Okay. So much pressure, or I don't remember. But I wouldn't have felt this pressure rate was extraordinarily high. I didn't feel like Goff, especially in the first half. No way. And one person pressure, Nick Bosa pressure, isn't enough. Frankly, that shouldn't be enough. It's not going to be enough when you're playing Patrick Mahomes. I'll tell you that. You better be coming at him from multiple angles. I grant you, the interior linebackers are good. I didn't think the secondary was any good. Lions didn't have the ball in the third quarter except for when they were fumbling or, doing something stupid. I don't know. I'm wary of the Niner defense, and I guess I'm going to beat that drum for the next 11 days.
No, that's valid. I mean, because even with Love, they were just his two poor timing plays just cost them a lot. It's also the inverse being I'm not trying to go against Purdy. He turned it on at the end. But he hasn't paid for his mistakes the way that, the Niners are capitalizing on mistakes on their side. So, I also had a similar take, going in. I thought it was going to be a small favorite for Kansas City. So, I mean, not to, I'll determine that more as I study it for next week, but that's just my initial impression.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I think you're not going to blitz Mahomes. And the whole San Francisco should be absolutely the one team that's set up to get pressure with 4 because you know all those names and they're all stars and they're all making a ton of money, and that should be the recipe. Like get those crazy linebackers on Kelsey and get pressure with 4, and everybody else play zone, and we'll take our chances. And they should have lost to the Packers, and I didn't think the defense was very good. And they really should have lost to the Lions, and I really didn't think the defense was very good. And I don't know. I mean, isn't it crazy how a month changes our minds? But like, I'm to the point now where I don't trust that defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar feeling that I had at the end of the season about the Chiefs' offense. I was just like, I've seen enough. And then, so I suppose there is the potential, but I mean, like the lag of it all. But maybe I'm wrong because they still have Patrick. So,
yeah, I mean, okay, so I agree with you. That's all we talked about on this show for the entire season. Like, not same Chiefs offense. We're ready to pick. We weren't going to pick against them in the cold against Miami, but we were ready to pick against them in Buffalo. I was ready to pick against them. You learned your lesson. I did not, against Baltimore. This is 2 games essentially that Mahomes lost to the Raiders at home, right? Like this offense was awful all the way through December. What have we learned? Like, are they playing that much better? Kelsey's making a bunch of catches.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like I kind of stand by the offense, just kind of very like the 13th best offense in the league, even with Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And like, what matters is the defense.
Yeah, I suppose they're just hitting for power, and like they're meaning like that, like just the things that weren't working. They have some reliability that I thought they didn't have before with Kelsey. I don't know, just looking younger.
Yeah, coming out of nowhere.
Wily, like his work, his body control is still incredible, but it wasn't a couple weeks. He was dormant for like 10 weeks, right? His last touchdown was against Philadelphia, which was the last time Philadelphia was good, which was like a year ago. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, MVS caught 2 balls one game. That's like a big leap. But yeah, no, you're right.
The last one was unbelievably important, right?
Yes.
That won the game.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it's true. Like, I suppose I'm taking confirmation bias as if like there's some huge shift. They scored 17 points, and then the defense really like wrecked Miami. So yeah, it's interesting. I also suppose the way this defense is built, it's an entirely different, strange Chiefs team. It's an Andy Reid. It's more like, I think it's appropriate to discuss the Pats because it feels like one of those late Brady Pats teams, like the one that beat the Rams in that Super Bowl. It's just like, we can suppress you, and this guy can do some cool stuff, and that's kind of the formula.
Yeah,
it's like that's the formula. Yeah. It's they have one power hitter in him in the lineup, and the rest of it is just we have aces pitching. Like, meaning just to say it, like they're a suppression team now. So
yeah. I mean, I think the 49er game plans in these 2 playoff games have been weird.
Yeah.
Have been strangely, to start games, not that McCaffrey heavy and not thrown to him really much at all. At least not it feels like big spots or nearly as much as they do during the season. When we're in fantasy, we're always like, could you just give it to him a little fewer times? Because I don't want him to die in fantasy. Like now there's nothing to wait for. Like, just beat him. Like do it. Give it to him. And they kind of aren't. There's a lot of emphasis on Debo that I don't know that I agree with.
And Kittle disappears for quarters at a time. It's like, you guys know you have George Kittle, right? It's like, So
weird. I mean, and then we'll talk about Purdy more next week.
Sure.
But like, he's played 2 pretty bad playoff games and won them both. And like, again, I don't think that means he sucks.
No,
I don't think it means he's not a starting quarterback in the league. I just think it means I heard a good comp for him, Rich Gannon.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. I mean, MVP Rich Gannon was amazing, but then he lost the Super Bowl by 35 points. So yeah, that works. I hope that works out.
But like, not he wasn't huge.
But scrambly, like Wiley, yes, yeah.
Right, Wiley, scrambly. I mean, Purdy made
his
really
running
huge,
was great. His running was
legs.
great.
Yeah, huge. And like, that could very much get the Niners a championship. It really could. Like, he's not a bad player. He's not.
No.
But like Rich Gannon, he's wildly aggressive, and he can. I mean, he could throw 3 interceptions in any game he plays almost. He's crazy aggressive, and once again didn't pay for mistakes. I mean, he did early, threw a bad pick early, right? And that was part of why the Lions were ahead by so much. But, Gannon was a gunslinger. By golly, he's going to come to town. You knew you were getting the deep ball, And like, I kind of feel like that's, Purdy, like underwhelming athlete, tons of moxie, good runaround scrambler, and then, just super aggressive. And like you said, when Gannon got his one big chance at the big game, the aggression against Tampa didn't work. Remember when Tampa 2 was all the rage? Remember that? That was great.
I do. Yeah, I do. I remember when they closed. I was at Veterans Stadium when they closed it with that. That was great. That was fun. Rondé Barber, just going back to the hits. Play the hits,
Oh, man. All right, well, we're not going to make picks this week. We're going to save that for next week. I think you probably know where we're both leaning as far as the point spread goes, unless we get some crazy movement between now and midweek next week. But we'll also have next week a ton of props and other thoughts and totals and all that stuff, and probably just talk more about how we think this game might go. We would love it if you would support DraftKings, because without them we wouldn't be making the show. You just get the DraftKings app wherever you get your apps. You sign up using the code HarrisTube, all one word. You're going to be watching the Super Bowl anyway. If you've never downloaded the app, it helps us out a little bit. They check who uses the codes, right? So if you use the code HarrisTube, they'll say, hey, maybe we should sponsor that show again next year. And that would be awesome, because we would love to have them back. And if you do that, make one $5 bet, you'll get $200 in bonus bets into your account instantly. And then spread that around and have fun on Super Sunday. Jim, thank you so much for talking. Really, I felt like we needed to talk about the losers, but
I like talking about losers. I'm from Philadelphia, so it's what we do. One early prop bet that I'm just going to throw out there is Jason Kelsey shirtless. Combine that with the under on the anthem, and then that's a good bet. So, yeah,
I think that's great. The Taylor Swift. I'm not going to have a Taylor Swift prop for you, anybody. You're going to have to go somewhere else. Get that on your own time. That's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. Thank you so much to Dave Pyper for producing all year and continuing to do so this week. Thanks to Jim for being awesome and my friend. And my name is Chris, and I thank you for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button. Write a comment, tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on, and of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button, and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.